Joining us now is someone who can speak to both of these topics. He is Joe Hinrichs, and he is President and CEO of CSX, which is a leading supplier of rail-based freight transportation in North America, the biggest on the East Coast here. Welcome. Good to see you, Joe.
Thanks for having me.
So I want to start big picture here, because the U.S. will see a changing government in January, and with it, of course, new trade policies and new regulatory policies. What is the single biggest change that you anticipate for CSX and the rail industry?
Well, I think from our standpoint, the best thing the government can do is help the economy grow, because we move goods. So obviously, movement of goods is part of the economic growth. But one thing that we're looking for actually is a regulatory environment that is supportive of that growth, especially when it comes to safety and service. And so, that's one thing that we'll be talking about a lot as the new administration comes in, is how do we work together to foster economic growth, because we're a big part of that, the engine of that, but also how can we have a regulatory environment that works together to make it safer, but also make it better for the economy.
Now, it's still unclear the extent of tariffs that the incoming White House will impose, but do tariffs direct CSX directly? I mean, do they affect you directly? You move whatever goods consumers buy, whether it's imported or whether it's made in the U.S.
That's right. So actually, it does affect us on the imported goods that come into the ports, potentially. But at the same time, if more things are made in America, it's actually good for our business. And especially because we're the strongest in the Southeast and the Midwest, that's where a lot of the new development is happening, industrial growth, that we're a big part of that. We have over 500 projects going on right now in the United States in our network that's going to be on our rail network that's growing new business and new investment. So for us, you're right. If the economy is growing, whether it's internal or external, we're going to move it. But in actuality, if more stuff is made in America, it helps our business even more.
I am curious about labor dynamics. I mean, we came out of a year where we saw probably some of the biggest groundswell of labor strikes, at least in my lifetime here. And I know some of that's been tamped down. You had some experience in dealing with unions when you were at Ford. Dealing with railroad unions is a totally different animal. I think at Ford, you probably dealt with, what, one union, maybe two?
Yes.
How many are you dealing with now at CSX?
There's 13 major unions in the rail network in the U.S. alone. Like you said, in the auto industry, it was just the UAW in the U.S. and Unifor in Canada.
And what's your relationship like with the unions?
Well, I think we're very much improving. But historically, we've had a difficult relationship. If you go back to the 1800s, the railroads had a difficult relationship with employees, for centuries. And we're trying to change that. And our view is the way to change that is to try and find a more collaborative approach to negotiating. And you may recall 2 years ago, we were at Congress and the Presidential Emergency Board had solved the last round of bargaining, which took 3 years. And this time we've come to a conclusion with more than half our workforce and 11 of the 13 unions to find tentative agreements before the contract expires, which never happened before
ahead of deadline.
In the rail industry. Yes, because we think that in order to change the relationship with our employees and change the culture of our business, we have to get in front of this so that we're not fighting over it, so that we can spend the next 5 years working together to serve customers better and work and resolve employee issues as well.
A big part of that, though, too, in addition to improving the relationship there, is also this sort of balance between the human labor and technology, which some people see as a threat. But in the rail industry, I think it's very acute, right? Because a lot of people would say, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, the technology in the rail industry is probably behind the times. And that's just about CSX. That's really on the whole broad supply chain here. How do you find that balance? How are you going to find that balance?
It's interesting because in the auto industry that I spent 31 years in, we had to keep evolving with technology to compete globally. The rail industry hasn't had to do that as much. And so we've also had this tension between the unions and the administrators, regulators, and the companies to try and advance technology. And if it had a threat of labor involvement, it kind of tended to stall. And I have this theory that, over time, technology is undefeated. So you can't fight it forever. You have to embrace it. But how do we embrace it in a way that's good for our employees, better for the communities that we serve, for safety and otherwise? And how do we do that in a way together? And I think we approached it in the past as a combative type thing. And how do we look for solutions that work for everybody? But we need to advance technology in the rail industry, from everything from our network system and also to the safety of our network.
Is that going to get times back up, response times? Because that's been the big criticism, too. I mean, we talk about the companies that rely more on trucking. A lot of they do it because they need that just in time. They feel like they can't get it from the railroads. I thought this was something that was supposed to have been addressed years ago. I mean, has the Hunter Harrison playbook, has that been completely thrown out?
Well, I think we're in a next phase now. I mean, certainly the railroads got a lot more efficient and they're much more profitable and they have more capital to deploy than they ever had before. But now we're in a phase of how do we engage with customers to grow the business, which has to involve our employees. But on the technology front, how do we look for opportunities to focus on safety and service as opposed to necessarily efficiency first? But efficiency will come out of that, because in order to serve the customers better, we have to be more efficient. We're a network. It has to flow. And to be able to make that happen, technology can be a big part of it on inspection, also on safety, but also on just the network, the brains, the algorithms that are making decisions for us every day.
But won't technology replace jobs? I mean, that's the crux of the debate at the ports, for instance.
Sure. That is a big debate right now on the ports. Our perspective is, let's engage our employees in fixing the problems that technology can help us find better and more proactively.
Using technology to find the problems.
Let our employees fix the problems, whether it's a car, whether it's inspection of a car, whether it's the rail. We need employees to be a part of that. We want employees to be a part of that. It's where we channel their energy. Can we use technology to more accurately and precisely identify problems and then use the people to solve them?
With technology, do you think you need to hire more people, or do you keep staffing it where it is? Because
I think staffing can stay pretty where it is. It's, again, a redeployment of where people can be utilized.
I see.
For example, we have thousands of cars that need to be fixed every day. Put people on that as opposed to finding the problems that maybe a robot or maybe an inspection can find, or a rail, for example. But importantly, we want to engage with our union workforce to be part of that solution together. Because over time, we want to be more efficient, but we also need to be more safe. But also, we want to serve our customers better, because that can allow us to grow. The challenge with the rail network is, if we can provide better service, which engages our employees, we can grow, which employs more people and gives them more opportunity.
Any chance that we're going to see any significant M&A in this in the rail industry?
Probably unlikely, because we're down to 6 Class 1 rails, 2 in Canada, 2 in the East, 2 in the West. We had the big CPKC merger or acquisition, but probably not anything major that I'm aware of, and I'm not sure the regulators let that happen.
All right, well, it's going to be some new regulators in January, Joe. We got to get you back then and see how you feel then. Joseph Hinrichs is the CSX CEO and President.